What's up, Lions Nation? Get ready, because the latest news straight out of Detroit is absolutely electrifying. The team is in a historic moment. Expectations have never been higher, and every little detail from behind the scenes is making us even more excited for what's coming. The energy this roster is bringing is contagious, and there's no denying it. All eyes in the NFL are on the Lions. And trust me, what I've got to share today is going to get you even more hyped about what's happening with our team. So, smash that like button, hit the bell, because the season is right around the corner, and I'll be bringing you all the updates firsthand, straight to the most loyal fans in the league. Go Lions! What a whirlwind the last few days have been for Detroit Lions fans, and it feels like this roster shuffle has set the stage for one of the most intriguing seasons in recent memory. Let me walk you through everything that just went down, because, trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end of this. The Lions finalized their 53-man roster, worked on their practice squad, made a couple of key waiver claims, and added a safety who could quietly become one of the most important special teams contributors on this roster. And to make things even more fascinating, not a single one of the Lions players released during cutdowns was claimed by another team. That's right, none. But one name in particular did find a new home, and it's someone we've been following closely for the last 3 years. Hendon Hooker. Yes, that Hendon Hooker is no longer with Detroit. The Lions released him, and the Carolina Panthers scooped him up to sit behind Bryce Young. Think about that situation for a moment. Mobile quarterback, similar offensive system, and a team where the starter has already shown some durability concerns. Dan Campbell himself said before the release that a change of scenery might be exactly what Hooker needed. And you know what? This could work out pretty well for him. If Bryce Young misses time, Hooker may finally get the chance to show what he can do on the field. For Lions fans, though, it's a bittersweet goodbye. We've been talking about Hooker for years, and now we'll be watching from afar to see if he finally gets that breakthrough. Meanwhile, back in Detroit, the focus has shifted to the practice squad. Right now, only 4 names have officially signed on, but they're already shaping up to be a really strong group. First, Jacob Sailors. This one excites me. The running back depth is already loaded. But with Sailors on the practice squad, Detroit essentially has 5 legitimate options they could call upon if injuries hit. You know this team is built to run the football, and Sailors gives them insurance in case they need it. Then there's Jackson Meeks, the wide receiver who showed flashes during preseason. He's back in Detroit, stashed on the practice squad, but make no mistake, this is a guy who could see action sooner rather than later if the injury bug bites. Imagine him taking on a bigger role next year, or even sliding into the lineup this season if someone goes down.
And how about Tom Kennedy? At this point, it feels like death, taxes, and Tom Kennedy being on the Lions practice squad. He's a staple, he's dependable, and while he may not get the headlines, he embodies the kind of continuity every team needs. Alongside him is Tristan Cohen, a developmental lineman with the kind of upside Detroit loves to stash away and mold for the future. That's 4 names already locked in, with 12 more practice squad spots still to be filled. But let's shift to a sneaky big move. The Lions added safety Daniel Thomas, a name some might remember from his time with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, let me be clear. Thomas isn't being brought in to anchor the defense. He's being brought in because he's one of the most consistent special teams players in football. At 5 feet 10 inches, 215 pounds, Thomas has logged over 1,100 special teams snaps across 5 seasons. He's played on nearly every special teams unit, including the crucial gunner role on punt coverage. That versatility earned him a 2-year extension in Jacksonville after his rookie deal, and although he was cut in their final roster moves, Detroit pounced. Why? Because the Lions understand something a lot of casual fans overlook: special teams can decide games. Think back to last season. Detroit's special teams unit was one of the very best in the league. They gave the offense shorter fields to work with, flipped momentum, and helped put opponents in tough spots. That doesn't happen by accident, and adding Thomas means the Lions are doubling down on making sure special teams remain a strength. When you're a franchise with Super Bowl aspirations, you can't afford to have a weak link in any phase of the game. Offense, defense, and yes, special teams all need to be locked in. That's why Thomas's signing matters more than most people realize. Now, let's dive into the 2 new names claimed off waivers, because these moves are where things get really interesting. First up, Tyrus Wheat, an edge rusher picked up from the Dallas Cowboys. Wheat went undrafted in 2023 but managed to carve out a role in Dallas over 2 seasons, appearing in 20 games. His rookie year saw him log nearly 200 snaps on special teams, but last year he earned 165 defensive snaps, recording 14 tackles and half a sack. Is that a game-changer stat line? No, but here's the key: Detroit needs edge depth badly, and Wheat fits the mold of exactly the kind of player the Lions love to develop. He's a bit of a tweener, undersized compared to traditional defensive ends, but that's never stopped Detroit before. If he can grow into a situational pass rusher, suddenly this looks like one of those under-the-radar moves that pays dividends. The second claim was Tyler Lacy, a 4th-round pick out of Oklahoma State who spent 2 seasons with Jacksonville. At 6 feet 4 inches and nearly 280 pounds, Lacy is a big-bodied defender who's versatile enough to line up inside or outside. His rookie year, he split snaps between defensive tackle and defensive end, but last season Jacksonville kept him almost exclusively in the middle. Over 28 career games, he totaled 37 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 4 quarterback hits. No sacks yet, but the potential is there. And let's not forget the timing. Joshua Pascal won't be ready for week 1, which means Lacy could immediately be called upon to help hold down the defensive front. This is the kind of depth move that could make a difference once the grind of the season begins. So, when you look at the big picture, the Lions have shored up some critical areas. They didn't chase flashy names. They didn't go for a veteran wideout like Adam Thielen, despite the rumors that had been swirling. And honestly, that's the right call. This roster didn't need a wide receiver. What it needed was depth on the defensive line, help at edge, and reinforcement on special teams. And that's exactly what Detroit delivered. Now, the 53-man roster is set. The practice squad is taking shape. The Lions are stronger in areas they needed to be stronger, and they did it without overreacting to rumors or wasting resources on positions they didn't need. The question that lingers is simple. Did these moves elevate the Lions enough to put them in legitimate Super Bowl contention? The foundation is there, the depth looks good, and the team's identity is clearer than ever. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think about the Lions adding Tyrus Wheat and Tyler Lacy? Do you see Hendon Hooker thriving in Carolina? Or do you think Detroit made the right move letting him go? And how much weight do you put on the signing of Daniel Thomas for special teams? Drop your thoughts, your grades, and your takes, because this roster may just be the one that finally takes Detroit to the promised land. And here's where things get even more compelling, because while the headline moves grab the spotlight, the hidden story is the depth and development strategy unfolding behind the scenes. The Detroit Lions are not just building a 53-man roster, they are constructing a safety net, a developmental pipeline, and a contingency plan that could separate contenders from pretenders when the season gets deep into November and December. Think about it. How many seasons across the NFL collapse because injuries strike, depth gets tested, and teams have no answers? That's not the situation Detroit wants to find itself in, and that's exactly why every one of these practice squad signings matters. Take Jacob Sailors. On paper, he's a practice squad running back, but zoom out a little. Detroit has one of the most physical, relentless rushing attacks in football, and Sailor's presence means that even if disaster strikes in the backfield, this team won't miss a beat. He's a security blanket that allows the Lions to continue playing their